Gannon, man, myth, legend. I always say that, I don't know, but it is true.
Ah.
So anyone who's watching this and they don't know who Gannon is, Gannon was one of my absolute hero clients. He's been with me for the last year and a half. We just figured that out, didn't we? So like January 2021, you joined the program, you joined the Warriors. We've had a lot of ups and downs. We've had a lot of stuff go on. We've, filmed tons of interviews about that already. But you've now got a date to join the military, and you are in on the 16th of June, which is nuts, like, to think about.
Yeah, literally. I mean, it only took 26, 27 months for the application.
But I think, like, what I wanted to sort of jump on today and talk about is A, that last year and a half, and B, some of the things that you've learned, over the last year and a half, or over the last 2.5 years, especially with, joining the military, but also the challenge of overcoming a lot of things that we touched upon before. So, let's start with you, dude. Like, how would you describe your position, say, 3 years ago, or your mentality 3 years ago, and the ethoses, the values, everything that you had 3 years ago? How would you describe that version of Gannon?
Right, so 3 years ago, that takes back to what, 2019, right? Right, so, things, to put it mildly, they weren't good. I was drinking far too much. I didn't have the direction I wanted with my life. And then obviously, end of 2019, start of 2020, the pandemic hits. And obviously working in hospitality, it wasn't a stable work environment. So I decided April 2020, I'll apply to join the Air Force because, my dad did it before me and he sort of suggested it, a few months before. What have you thought about it? And then April, I was like, oh, you know what? Why not? I need a job with some sort of stability. The military, I'm signing on for an initial 12 years next Tuesday. So that's going to be mental.
And what made you think about joining? Like, so obviously, like you said about your dad, and you weren't in a very good position. And we'll touch upon that a little bit if you want. And then we'll sort of go into it. So what was that reality? So what were your routines? What were your structures like? What was going on there, mate?
I mean, there was no routine per se. There was no real structure to my life. All I was doing was working 50, 60 hours a week, getting paid pretty poorly for it. So I was only sort of like a line cook at the time.
Yeah.
And I just really had ambitions, but I didn't really act on them because I just wasn't in the right space to do that.
And what do you think was lacking? So when you said clarity and focus, like, there'll be a lot of guys listening to this who maybe they don't want to join the military, but they do want to improve themselves. And I think what happens, mate, and I don't know, I'm sure you'll agree with this, like, a lot of the reason why lads won't improve their health, fitness, or their mentality or their mental health is that it seems like such a big challenge. And joining the military for you has been such a big challenge in the sense of, like you said, 2.5 years, almost 3 years, a year and a half inside the program, and we've had tons of ups and downs. Anyone who's wondering around Stiffen, by the way, I've got bloody hay fever. It's so annoying. I just thought I'd clarify that. With that, mate, like, what would you say was the what was lacking? Like, what did you not have in place? Like, it's quite interesting to dive into that, actually.
Yeah, I think it was sort of my mental state, really, because especially touching back, not to be cliche, but it was my confidence I was lacking in. Externally, I've never been a timid person, but a lot of the so-called confidence I had was a little bit of like a bravado. It was more for show than anything. And then sort of now I can walk around with that sort of, I don't need to gob off as much. I can just get on with and do what I do without having to be this so-called confident alpha, whatever.
So many blokes do that, don't they? I think so many of us have done being guilty of, like, maybe in our work lives we're confident, or in our professional careers, or in our in what we're comfortable with, in what we're comfortable with. So maybe we know, there's a lot of guys who maybe know their job really well, they know it inside and out, and they're really good at it, but then they're lacking actual confidence. It's that sort of fake confidence, or that fake kind of bravado, or that maybe they're a high profile, they're in a great job, or they've got a really nice car, or they've got like really nice things, and that sort of steals the confidence of that. And then it's that outer, like you say, bravado that's sort of false, isn't it? I've seen that quite a lot. And can I ask, like, what made you stay in that position? I'd quite like about that, actually, to know that. So obviously there was a period before you're now confident, and you've joined this program. what made you stay in that position? Because you had probably struggled for, I think we talked about it, quite a long time, didn't you, prior to
Yeah, quite
2000?
a good couple of years. Yeah, so 2019 was when 2019 2020 was when I sort of started acting on things, and
Yeah.
even then I didn't do much. But it probably started, 2016 when I went to uni and I wasn't really ready to go.
Okay.
And then I just didn't like the experience. I dropped out, and then that really knocked my confidence because I'd
Yeah.
never failed before that, and I just saw myself as this sort of failure.
That's a huge
And
thing, isn't it?
yeah,
Like confidence as a definition is your ability to rely on something or someone. Me and you have talked about that loads, haven't we?
yeah,
And what happens very often is when lads fail a lot of things very successfully quickly, or like, when we get battered with like a breakup, a job loss,
yeah.
a relative dies, like all this stuff comes at us. It feels like everything's falling apart.
Yeah,
And
and
then,
nothing ever happens just once and then that's it for a
no,
while. It's always about five or six
yeah,
things in one go. Your girlfriend breaks up with you, your granddad dies, your car
yeah,
breaks down, you
yeah.
lose your house for some whatever reason. It all comes at once. It's never easy.
And like you said, like so 2016 to sort of 2019 with maybe 3 years, but then you didn't even join me till 2021. Like
Yeah.
what made you sort of not not when you first started in 2016, what stopped you maybe reaching out for professional help or looking at someone to help you, really build that confidence? What stopped you doing it back then?
I'd probably say pride, if anything else, my stupid male pride, because I thought, oh, I don't have this. I don't need that. You know what? I'll just suck it up. I don't need to talk to anyone.
Done
And then
that.
eventually it just went wrong,
Yeah.
like it does for pretty much every man on the planet. We don't like talking to people because of our pride. We don't want to reach out and ask for help because, it's built into us to see that getting help is weak. We should be the alpha male, that strong man to hold everything together. But at the end of the day, I was only a young kid. I mean, I'd ask for help now, but hindsight's 2020, isn't it?
Mate, and I think it's uncomfortable as well. It's uncomfortable to have that conversation,
Yeah,
and it's almost very often you, like you say, you don't want to admit these things, so it's uncomfortable to want to admit that. I think especially as blokes, like you say, it's intrinsically built into us to have a level of pride. We've got a level of responsibility or perceived responsibility, and ultimately, like you say, we don't want to be going and speaking to somebody because we're like, oh, I don't want to ask this guy for help. And what happens, I think, is it's a lot of different things as well. It's like paralysis by analysis. I touched upon that yesterday in some of my content. We talked about the fact that guys will overanalyze something or they'll overthink things.
yes,
They'll go,
that's a massive thing. Yeah,
yeah, and they'll go, oh, I might have to, if I speak to this person, I'm gonna have to invest money into it, and then all this stuff goes around in your head, and and then we go, oh, I could maybe do it cheaper on my own, or like all this stuff mishmash.
yeah. A lot of people, that I talked to said, when they found out, what I paid you for the coaching for everything, they're like, what I'd have done it cheaper. I'm like, yeah, but you're not qualified to do it. What makes you qualified? You're just some burnt out 40-year-old chef. What makes you qualified to coach me?
And I think that's something that maybe we'll address, and we're on a few tangents here. I do this often.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
But like, I think that's something that happens is one, blokes as a whole, I've done it with my own coaches, mate. Like you're really reluctant to want to reach out and you let the problem go on longer than needed.
Especially when it comes to reaching into your pocket and pulling your wallet out. That's where most people start thinking, oh, should I do this? And I had, not going to lie, when we had that conversation about money, I was there like, can I afford this? Because at the time I was on furlough, so I was 20% down on my wage anyway. So everything was tight and I thought, ooh.
Yeah.
Can I do this? Can I not? I mean, in the end, I put it on my credit card and everything was well, but still, for a while there, I was, ooh.
And I've done that before. I remember I told you, didn't I? Like I've had mentors and, I took out a bank loan for my first ever mentor. And, I remember that was, well, I won't say how much I paid for the mentor.
Yeah, that's got to be scary, hasn't it? When you're going to get a loan out and you've got to, and it's official, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, what I'll say is the bank loan was, I think it was around 10 grand I took out as the loan.
Yeah.
That wasn't all of what I needed to pay
at
the time. And I think like that was terrifying, but it's worked out now. Obviously that's completely.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the same as yourself. I think a big thing that we both realize is that actually it's great when you look back at it now because we talk about confidence. Like that say if you're in a struggling position, you won't like you said, like spending money on coaching or spending money on yourself is an uncomfortable thing to do.
Exactly.
Spending money is Right, we're on a lot of tangents, but don't worry.
Yeah. I mean, the way I see it is it's an investment. You know,
Yeah,
you've got to put money into an investment. You know, I've got a stocks and shares ISA. That'd be worthless if I didn't put any money into it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I put a lot of money into that, and now it's doing well. But before that, it wasn't because I hadn't invested into it. It's like me investing into you. I was doing fuck all. I was sat on my lazy ass.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I come to you. I was like, oh, do I invest this money? And then I thought, well, what else am I going to do with it?
Yeah.
You know, I'm just going to drink it or pay or you know.
That's the fact of the matter.
Whatever, yeah.
Like, you know, we're both quite young lads, and like you said, we're both very heavily invested into our own education or our own self-development. And I think that's something that a lot of younger guys, or maybe even guys that are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, don't really consider potentially, is the fact that you are the most powerful investment first, because you transition everything else. Like, you know, Ollie Ollerton talked about that, didn't he? The best project to invest in is you. And that's not just money, that's time, energy, focus, because you are the center of pretty much everything, you know.
Yes.
I'm not saying that in a selfish way. I'm saying that in a way that actually is unselfish, because realistically, if you're okay, you can provide for your work colleagues, your family,
you can help others. And you can't help others unless you're helping yourself, because if you're not practicing what you're preaching, like these good habits, these, you know, this eating, this working out, you know, people are going to look at you and be like, well, why should I do what you're doing or what you're saying, because you're not doing it?
And coming back to your point about like some people will go, I'll do it cheaper, I'll do it this. I had similar things when I, you know, hired my first mentors, and so I've had 5 now, I think 5 off the top of my head that I can remember. So I had Di Phillips, I had was maybe Rumby, he helped me get into the Marines, Phil Graham, Ollie Carson, who I've now got currently, Dan Hancock, Isaac Lewis. So those are the 5 people that I say have been quite key that I've paid to mentor me.
Yeah.
I dread to think how much I spent on all those. But then I think the biggest thing is that like you said, it pays dividends. You know, it pays dividends down the line. And I think a big thing is that when, you know, someone on the outside looking in it say, oh, why would you spend all that money on that? Sometimes what they have to consider is that if they're okay, one, they won't understand because they're not in a negative position. But number 2, if they're not okay, but they're, like you said, we both know that I was definitely doing this prior to, you know, hiring some of my coaches, that when you're not invested into something, you are just going to spend the money somewhere else. Like, it is going to go.
Exactly. I mean, you know, in the lockdown, you know, prior to you know, signing up with you, I was there 2-3 cases a week of beer, maybe a bottle of whiskey as well. You know, looking back, it was bordering on an alcohol problem, because we had a couple of nice little boutique alcohol shops around the corner from where I lived. This really nice whiskey shop that, you know, they knew me by name, and I should have realized when they knew me by name, and sort of said, oh, we'll set this aside for you. I thought, you know, should we be doing this? And then, you know, the local beer guy, he was loving me and my housemates as well, because we were walking in there spending 150 quid a week in between us.
Well, we touched upon that the other day, didn't we? We said, like, even if you only bought 2 beers, or let's say a pint, 1 pint is about 8 quid, isn't it? Roughly, like, average.
8? Or I mean, I can tell you live down south with 8 quid a pint. You know, I live in Yorkshire, buddy. I'm looking at 4 quid a pint.
Yeah, so 4 quid a pint. So 2 pints a night. Like, you average 2 pints.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go too deep into this because
So just, it's another tangent, isn't it?
Yeah, but like 2 pints a night, you know, it's $3,000 a year. Like, if you work it out, it's 2,920.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Very often, like, people will look at these things of, you know, investments, coaching, and they think, oh, you know, like $3,000, you know, or whatever, you know, someone charge, and I think, you know, oh wow, it's a lot of money to invest. But then we both know, and what I think is great, and actually I imagine you've probably realized this in your own brain, is the first time you do spend money on a mentor, you see that if you do see the value in the return, it means that you know that you're going to be taking that action again, because when you are in a situation, you know that you'll spend money to get yourself out of it. It's not just about money, though. You know, it's
definitely not. You know, I mean, you know, I could have paid you all the money in the world, but if I wasn't willing to get off my arse and do what you told me to do, you know, the workouts, the diet, the macros, you know, I don't stick to the, you know, the macros, you know, anymore. You know, I've got a rough idea of what I need to eat in a day.
That's what
that's what the education's about.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need to track everything I eat anymore just because I know what I should and shouldn't be eating. You know, it's that education.
we talk about that, don't we? There's two sides to this coin, and I think a huge thing, like we're talking about the gap, weren't we? What you didn't have, and this is definitely the reason I've hired a lot of my mentors is the gap is normally clarity and focus, and that's kind of why I like keyhole that, because most men, what happens, don't they? Like you, 2016, were probably lacking understanding, which is obviously clarity, and the focus, which is the ability to actually do what you need to do. And what I find quite often happens, mate, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, Gannon, is like if you don't have the knowledge, that's half the battle. But the other side is if you don't have the focus to implement the knowledge, that's the other half of the battle.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So like, you don't, first one, you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know something, like you say, you previously probably didn't even know what macros were, didn't even understand what nutrition was. You didn't even understand how, to actually set these things out and make sure that you were nailing it today. But also it was if you can Google that information, or most of it you can, it's actually implementing it that matters.
Yeah, exactly.
I had a great.
It's the accountability as well within the group that helps with that. It provides that focus you were talking about, and also going back to that sort of paywall for learning. Look at university; that's nearly 10 grand a year, and people do that 3-4 years. Some of them even do PhDs and are doing 10 years at that price. They're looking at hundreds of thousands. Whereas obviously you're not charging hundreds of thousands of pounds.
What you've got,
and you're still providing, a top tier education, accountability, group, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
People, I suppose, have to kind of a little bit of the mentality is to consider is like a university course, there's no guarantees at the end of any of it. Like there's nothing guaranteed that's going to happen. And also the other flip side of that is the university course isn't necessary. It's an investment into your education and your future, but it's not necessarily an investment into the direct version of you right now to transition into a future. Like there's no point having a sheet of paper that says you've got a bachelor's degree if you're absolutely no energy, and when you do turn up to go to work, you're fucked. Like it's pointless.
Exactly. Yeah.
And anyway, moving on, because I could go on about that all day, but very often what happens is that the flip side of that, exactly like what you talked about, is implementation of that knowledge. I think that's a massive thing. The reason I've still got coaches now, like I've still got, Ollie Carson's my current coach. I've got some of the guys from, as my fitness coaches that do the stuff for me. And I remember there was a great, so I actually did one of Tony Robbins' courses a little while back. So the UPW course, again, something else I've invested in. I just like doing it. But, one of his courses I thought was fantastic. And he said the fact that knowledge isn't actually power. Knowledge is potential power if you use it and utilize it to create that.
Oh, that's good.
That accountability, support, and community is one of the biggest things. Like I was having this chat yesterday, actually, with a couple of the lads who joined about that. That I think is one of the biggest things that's probably a little bit different maybe from other people about what we do. Like I don't just want to educate you, I want you to get to a point. You are a grade prime example of someone that's done that. Like you said, I want you to be educated to a point where you implement it, you're supported, you're kept accountable for a long enough period that it becomes your identity. What would be quite cool to talk about right now, and we'll sort of flip this a bit. So 2016 negative position, 2019 started to get the ball rolling, 2021 you joined us, and I feel like we've absolutely skyrocketed this over the last.
Because we've gone sort of, if you look at it like one of those sort of like stock graphs here, we were sort of down here, sort of up and down, and then if you look at this point, like 2019, there was like a little bit of an upturn, but it was just sort of still very, very slow, very little amount of progress. And then going into sort of 2020, 2021, once I applied for the military, I might have gone on, those couple of jogs, but January 21 particularly, that's when I started, that sort of upturn with that education, the accountability, everything you and the lads within the group provide.
And looking at that, like you're a year and a half like down, you're, now obviously joining the military, so that's now going to take over. But on that, like, do you feel that you've armed yourself over the last 2 years almost with, the right skills, the right understanding to ultimately the best thing I would say is do you reckon you'd ever need to hire another coach again? Or do you feel that you have all of the knowledge, all of the understanding, and exactly how to do it because of the course?
100%, obviously, even if I do, fall behind again for whatever reason, I've still got you to come back to. I can just, come back and say, Alex, I might need a couple months here or there, X, Y, Z. You've said this yourself, I'm more than welcome back, as a good client, you have no doubts about that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the program is what you make of it for me.
Okay.
You know, it's like life. You've got to, sometimes you've got to put on your big boy pants.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you know what I mean, and just sort of right, we've got to get on with this now. Even
Nice.
if you've not got a family like in person to, hold yourself accountable, you still got this online family now.
Yeah.
He's,
Yeah.
Uncle Alex is helping you out pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. And even like, the meetups that we had, that was fantastic. Also,
Yeah.
the rocket race and like,
Oh, that was awesome. That,
Yeah.
I've even put a couple of those the pictures on the online dating profiles. I was like, yeah,
Boom!
look at that guy. Look at that guy. Look at that guy.
Mate, that's
brilliant. Yeah.
And like, what I'd love to cover, mate, is like, what are the biggest things that you've learned? Like, what's the biggest things that you're taking away from this program, this course? Like, everything that we've done over the last like year and a half. What are the biggest things that you'll probably look back on in a year's time, once you're into your career, and think, I'm fucking so glad I've done that. What's the biggest things you think so far?
I think it'll be the way my mentality sort of switched.
Okay.
So obviously starting the program was very suspicious, very, I wasn't, ready and open to accept anything new. That's where I was at mentally. And now I'm a lot more open-minded. I'm a lot more, welcome to these exercises, these things. I've a lot more trust now than I did.
Yeah. Okay.
Being honest. Yeah.
Mate, that's awesome. I think like, do you feel as well? I found this with my coaches. You've got a thirst for more knowledge.
Yes, literally. I mean, the amount of audiobooks I've got now is horrendous because I've only started about 4 of them. And then I'm halfway through this at the moment as well. Going back to your thing on power, 48 laws of power. I'm about halfway through this, but I've been halfway through for the last year, because I'm just reading so much at the moment. Yeah.
Do you feel, Gannon, at all? Like, I'm going to get this picture up because I think it'd be really cool to show everyone. But like, do you feel like you've stepped into a new identity almost? Like, in the sense of you're now, we're a year and a half later, 2019 to 2022 June. Do you feel like you are a very different person from, when you previously joined, like, or even just, 2019 or 2016? Like, is this a different Gannon? Do you almost feel like?
Yes. It's hard to describe just how different I am. I'm basically a different person. I've got a different attitude, a different mindset. I'm, with the routines and everything I'm eating properly now. From 2016 to about 2020, I didn't really eat breakfast. It might have been, a burrito for lunch, and that's what I had up until about 2 o'clock. And now I'm here eating porridge. I'll have a coffee, have a couple of bananas. I'll go to the gym. I'll go to work, and then I'll have more fruit while I'm at work rather than the fried food I'll eat. And that's the discipline, and the sort of intelligence and education I've been provided. Because your chicken, your fried chicken, that's protein, but there's still a lot of shit in that. So I just stay away from that now. And
when you look at that, like, what's that feel like? It's kind of, what does it feel like to genuinely have like a new identity? To, like you said, you've got that thirst for knowledge. You want to learn more. You want to really, be shifting forward. You want to be in that position where you're going. Like, what does it actually feel like to just genuinely be like in that all-round level?
It almost feels like I've woken up from and left the Matrix. I see every
I love that. That's it.
Yeah, because I sort of see everyone else that I'm looking at sort of in work, and there's some lads that I keep saying, oh, there's this guy, you might benefit from him. That mate of your mine that I said I was that was joining the Navy. I talked to him, he goes, oh, I don't know. I'm like, well, that's his Instagram if you want it, basically. And he's still umming and ahhing about it, but I don't think he will, because he's not the guy that takes action. He's a nice guy, but he's not an actionable person.
So I'm gonna show you a picture here now. I'll show you these two. So anyone who's watching this, I think it gives a real actual like understanding. So give me 2 seconds.
So
I'll go on this. So give me a sec. I'll show you. So I wanted to get this picture up because I should have loaded this before, because it's actually when we look at it. 2 secs.
No worries.
It's actually mad when we look at this. So this was obviously you sort of start. And I remember the funniest thing, there's a video of yourself talking about like a little bit of punch here, like that whole.
Yeah.
ethos of it, and it's not just the body. Like, we know that your mind is accompanied in your body, so that's one of the things. And when you now look at this and like, you're leaner, you're bigger,
exactly.
like
You can just see everything's that little bit leaner, that little bit bigger. I'm standing a lot taller, if you notice as well. Look at the posture. It's
and like, what do you say, like, to that lad? So that lad that's sort of, like, he's a little bit underconfident. He's not really sure of what he's doing. He's got this kind of bravado, and now you're here, and it's not just about the physical element of it. We both know that.
Like,
the mental side. Like, what would you actually say to that Gannon? Because that bloke will be the guys who aren't willing to take action, who aren't willing to invest in themselves, who are skeptical, who are worried, who are panicked, who are stressed, who are thinking, should I do this? They're overanalyzing, and they're, like you said about your friend, or just in general, hundreds of thousands of guys around the planet that are lost, hopeless. They haven't got that focus. What would you be sort of talking to them about and saying? Because you were that bloke, and I've been that bloke.
Yes.
We've all of us inside the program, that you'll have seen there, will have been those blokes. Like, what's it like? Like, what would you say to that
guy? Right. So what I'd probably say is just take some sort of action. Take that leap almost. To use the analogy of, that freezing cold pool of water we jumped into on the rocket race. Look at all of our faces in that picture jumping in. And once we're in, we're sort of, we've got that horrible sort of look on our face, but we did it. It's not a high jump. It's not massively hard thing to do. Children were doing that jump, but I'm just using it as an analogy, really. Yeah. So you've got to take action. Start with, even if you're not with a coach, with a program, start with 1 run, 1 walk a week. Make your bed. The Admiral McRaven speech, I'm sure you're familiar with it, Alex.
Yeah.
And then once you accomplish that one small task of the day, you'll want to complete more tasks. You might get your laundry done. You might get something cleaned. You might do something else. You might cook yourself a healthy meal rather than ordering a kebab or a garlic bread or something. And then you'll want to do more. And before you know it, you'll be doing more because your body's addicted to achievement.
And like, the biggest thing for me, mate, is that you look at your journey in the last, especially last year and a half, like year and a half to put into your education, into self-development. It's a long time. But a big thing that Ollie Carson talked about, and actually I think is fantastic, is that, like, people get it wrong. They think that motivation needs to come first. But like you said there, the small action will create a small result, which will give you the motivation to take another small action. Over the last year and a half, you will have taken a ton of small actions that have got you where you are now. But also, mate, you faced a ton of challenges. And that's
I've not been motivated every single day. Definitely not. Nobody is motivated every day.
That's what I think.
Just how it is.
Maybe those lads are scared about, that aren't action takers, that don't. I'm not even talking about investing in me. Like, fuck me. I'm talking about just generally doing anything, like you said about.
Exactly,
is that they look at it too big of a mountain. And I think that both of our advice, I'm sure we both say, is that the mountain may be massive, but it's completed by step.
Yes.
It's not something that's just done overnight, and you shouldn't want it done overnight. If it's a small hill and you just run up it, it'd be pissed. But what would you say to those guys they're almost scared of the challenge? They're scared of really, becoming that new person.
Well, I'm going to go back to when I was a teenager now, and when I was, I grew up in the church, and I used to do a lot of, public speaking within the church. And one of the things I went to was like this lecture on, taking steps to achieve, in your life. And, you don't always know what like the next step is. So you sometimes just have to have that little bit of blind faith. I might have been on the bottom step before I met you. And, I had to take that step of blind faith, to get up that mountain. You're the Sherpa on this mountain for me. You helped me get where I am. And that's only because I took that blind step. I don't always know what's going to come through, whether or not you think that might be some sort of God or deity providing that, or whether it might be a coach, for instance.
Do you know what's quite nice now about that is, like, because obviously lads will have seen this, like, we've got 30 odd blokes in the program now. I think we've coached hundreds, literally hundreds, like over 100 plus, like, guys in over the last 3 years. But what's quite nice for you guys is that you are, the guys, you were taking blind steps, maybe because you did join early on, some of the lads who really early on. But what you've got to consider is you've taken a blind step, so the next bloke behind you knows where to put his feet. Like
Yeah.
the next guy comes along, I'm sure you more than happily can speak to you and say, was that a worthy investment? Does that make sense to go forward? What did it do for you? Has it improved your self-identity? And then they're taking that with a little bit more comfort because they know that it works. I think
there's a genuine bloke out there saying this works as long as you put in the effort. That's what I'd say. I've seen a lot of guys come through the program who have had varying degrees of success. Obviously, I've been a year and a half, and you sign up for those 3 months, 6 months, whatever. I've seen guys, do super, super, super well. Then I've seen other lads just crash and burn and leave the group, and I'm just there like, life is what you make of it. That's my current sort of mantra. Life is what you make of it. You're not going to drag me out of bed at 9 a.m. and take me for a jog. You can't do that with 30 blokes all over the country. Exactly.
And I think that's the biggest thing is that that's what I look for in clients as well. I look for guys who are, they actually want the result. They just don't just want to talk about it. One, by taking action to invest in themselves and also to invest the time. But two, I always talk about it, don't I? Solution driven. I want lads who are trying to develop solution driven mindsets because I've had lads who are very negative, they don't respond well, and they don't get that the onus and responsibility is on you. No matter who you are, no matter who you are, as I said, I've had 5, 6 coaches myself. It's not their responsibility to get me a result in each of their fields. It's my responsibility to action their results, lean on their support, and that therefore will get me a result. The onus is on you as a client always to action what you're told, and also then or ask for support and find someone to help you find a solution. I kicked at least 5 or 6 lads out and refunded them because I've said look, you are not the right fit for this program. And what you said to me, because I always ask the question, don't I? Why should I work with you? Why are you going to be Gannon? I'm not looking for lads who are just in the program for the sake of it. I do not give a fuck.
Yeah, you're not here just to take people's money and have them coast and do the minimum. You want, those heroes, those guys, the guys like Jonathan and Liam. I think they're the only lads that are left from before I joined now. Jonathan, Liam, because obviously I think Colin's doing stuff with his family now. But those guys, they're Liam and Jonathan, they're the sort of Alan, they're the sort of legends of the group. I look up to them. Whereas the rest of the group, may or may not look up to me. I don't know. I'm not that active within the group myself. I'm a lot more, I think, independent than some of them. But guys like Liam, Jonathan, Alan, they sort of really lead the group. I think, me and Liam are always, chatting, even if it's not about the program. We're always chatting about something.
Yeah, and I think for me, that's what I'm looking for in clients. I'm looking for guys who are willing to actually get results, and they also are willing to help and support each other. And there are a certain breed of guy. I get that there's lads who've got problems, but I want lads who have problems who are willing to solve them. That's the thing. It's just you need the right clarity and the right focus and the right support. Like you said there, mate, there's tons of guys who are willing to, there's no point hiring a coach if you're just willing to moan. That's pointless. You want to hire someone because you're I want them to lead the way, but you're willing to walk that path. And there's not to put anyone off. There's put it bluntly, if you're getting into the program, then you probably are that bloke, because there's quite a strict process beforehand for us to actually get you in. So you will, know pretty well. There's a lot of uncomfortable.
I think it took about a week and a half of uncomfortable conversations and discussions about X, Y, and Z before I even got to and then you got to you sending me, right, here's your first workout. Let's see what you can do. Yeah. And, that first run was horrible. I don't think I've been for a run in about 6 months at that point. I think it was a mile and a half. We did that test. I think I did about 11 press ups or something. And then
it's that uncomfortableness if you keep going on that. I know now that when you go into your career or just in the rest of your life, mate, no matter what you go ahead and do, you're able to face that discomfort and take it on for like Ollie Ollison says, for the long-term gain. Because I think a big thing for me is that lads that aren't willing to have uncomfortable conversations with me or themselves, I don't think actually are the lads who, they're wanting to actually get a result. They ultimately it might be that you need someone to help you understand that. And I do have sympathy. Of course I do. But at the same time, I only have sympathy if you're willing to do something. I don't have
Yeah.
sympathy if you're just
It's
there.
like some of the very personal stuff I told you over the phone after we'd only sent a few messages on Instagram. I'm like,
Yeah.
can't believe I'm telling this complete stranger
Yeah.
all my deepest, like darkest, like fears, secrets. People that some stuff. Some of my family members don't even know.
I think for me though, that's what I want. I want a group of those guys who are willing to open up about problems and also
Yeah,
to help each other solve them. Because, like you said, like that's the biggest thing is like the community element of this is absolutely massive, and that ultimately the other thing is that it's like when you join the Marines or you join the Army. Or the RF or like anything, is ultimately like you all know that you've gone through the same process. You've had to invest time, energy, money into getting that lid, and then that when same as this, like you've all had
yeah,
to invest time, energy, money, and you've gone through a certain process, which means that when you do get in, you all know you're on the same playing field.
yeah. You all want to be here, exactly. You've got that
Yeah,
sort of elite mind. You've got that elite mindset almost.
yeah, and you're all
That's what really makes it sort of not to be cheesy, but a band of brothers
it is,
almost.
and
Makes you a
that's
lot closer.
the same with the fact that I obviously don't coach women, and that's not a bias because I hate women. It's because I just feel like a group of men is a lot different than a group of men plus a few women, and actually it's just the relatability. Like that was the biggest reason I'd probably say you opened up so much, didn't you? Because there's a lot of
Yeah,
stuff I've done in my life that's been shit, and there's tons of things that we related to, and like I said, I've gone through the coaching process myself, so I know what it feels like to have
yeah.
coaches and the value of it as well, which is fantastic. But
It's like when you started messaging me on Instagram. I was like, "Who's this bloke?" Then I was like, "I'll have a look through his profile. He's a coach. Do I need a coach?" And I thought,
yeah,
I'll have a look through his profile. I always had these struggles, that struggles. Always been a Marine. He's done.
yeah.
Always come back from this and that. I'm like, oh, so and then I thought, if he can do it, why can I not do it?
So anyone
That's the competitive edge with me.
to round up, because otherwise we will talk forever.
Yeah, we could probably be here for another hour at least, I think. Yeah.
On that, anyone who's looking at the program, or you've been in like say a year and a half, and anyone who's sort of thinking about it, or they're questioning it, or they're going, "Should I do that?" What would you say to them, Gannon, mate?
Just do it, I think, because you might not know how well it'll work out until you do it, until you invest in yourself.
Yeah.
And the dividends you'll get will be better or worse depending on the level of effort you're willing to put in.
Nice. And looking at that, like I talk about life-changing opportunities. I talk about I really want to change everyone's life. Has this changed yours?
How has it changed or
Has it changed?
Has it? Yes, 100%, 100%. Yeah. Massive turnaround, yeah.
Mate, brilliant. Fantastic. I'm going to pause I'm going to stop recording there. But mate, you are
No worries, man.
I'm buzzing to watch your career fly, and like I genuinely couldn't have asked for like a better candidate for this. And if we can have 100 more like you over the next 10 years or whatever, then
that'd be awesome. 100 more lads that have turned their headspace around. That'd be pretty sick. Yeah. As good as me. That would be awesome to see. Yeah.
And that's it. Just keep that turning burning. And anyone who does want to reach out, obviously you can find Gannon on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook, or click the link.
Yeah.
I say this all the time. Like, don't just speak to me if you want to join the program. Go speak to these lads, because they're the ones.
Yeah, exactly. If you're suspicious about it, message the guys that have actually paid for it, who've done it. Guys like me, Jonathan, Alan, Liam. He's flying, man. He's a coach himself, and it's just amazing to see, because he works full time as like a carpet fitter, and then he's a coach as well. And I just, Jesus, the level he's on is sick.
Oh mate, that's been mad, isn't it? When you have some lads, we won't go into that. I'll leave on this note, but like lads who are like, oh, the confidence I've gained has got me a 50k job a year. I'm now a manager, or like I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I've set my own business up. Like it's nuts, isn't it, when that happens? But anyway, I'm gonna finish on that because
definitely,
legend, Gannon. I'm gonna stop there.
Thank you. Cheers, mate.